Today I'm going through my paperwork for my visa. I'm just going to be talking about my kind of experience as a British international student in America. So my experience almost definitely would be different from an international student from, let's say, an Asian country or an African country. And I do recognize that I do have a lot of privilege coming from a wealthy country, being white, speaking English as my first language already. And I also understand that it might seem weird to be someone who not only is from a country where our student loans are not incredibly expensive. I mean, they are expensive, but they could be worse in my eyes. But secondly to that, I lived in Germany before I moved to the US. And in Germany, a lot of university is free. So not only did I forego an experience of taking half the time to do my masters in England or the UK, but I also forewent, if that's the term to use, the experience to have a degree almost entirely for free in Germany. However, I say all this with the preface that I actually don't pay for my degree in the US either, and it probably not worked out better for me to be in America than in Germany to study, or almost definitely in the UK to study. Let me start with why I'm in America. So, as I just mentioned, I used to live in Germany. So I moved to Germany. Okay, let me try and start from the beginning. I am obviously British. I studied for my bachelor's degree in Wales, and I graduated in 2016. So that was like 5 years ago, which is insane. I lived in Wales for 2 or 3 years after I graduated. I loved it there. And then an opportunity arose for me to move to Germany. So I moved to Berlin alone in 2018. So fresh start, I'm in Berlin, and I lived there for just over a year, and in that year I never found a job that was like a career type job. And then I met my boyfriend, which that's definitely a whole video for another day. My boyfriend is American, and we were long distance. We met, I can't do the story right now, but we were long distance for a good few months, and then he basically said, hey, why don't you move to America? He had actually moved to America. So he's an American citizen, but he had moved to America originally, and he'd gone through the whole visa process and everything. And he basically was like, hey, there's a university like a few miles away from where I live, like why don't you check out the courses there, you can come and do your master's degree. And I had looked at doing a master's degree when I moved to Berlin, so I'd already considered doing a master's degree, but I wasn't entirely sure in what. I had a few different ideas in mind. I wasn't really sure where I wanted to like take myself in the future. So the next time I visited him, we drove out to the university near where he lives, checked it out, spoke to the people in the international office, and I literally applied for a place there and then. So he had told me that there's something in American universities, which maybe they have this in the UK or Europe, I don't know, called like a graduate assistantship. So he basically said if you get a graduate assistantship or a GA position, they'll pay for you. You just work for the university and they basically pay for your tuition. Some universities do it a bit differently. Some universities, they don't cover your tuition at all. Some of them cover your tuition and pay you. Some of them pay you a lot. Some of them don't pay you very much. So they have full-time and part-time GA positions. So as a full-time GA position, you're a full-time student. So I take 3 classes a week, which are like 3 hours each. So 9 hours a week of classes. And then I do up to 20 hours a week in my GA position. That includes like teaching and tutoring. Sometimes it can include grading, working with professors for their classes. Some people do online stuff, some people do social media stuff. There's a whole lot of different options. I applied for a GA position before I'd even applied for the degree program that I wanted. I ended up applying for an English degree in creative writing, managed to get in and get the full GA position, so that meant that all of my tuition was covered and I didn't have to drum up, you know, like $14,000 up front to start here. Once I was confirmed as a student, I had to obviously apply for the visa, which it wasn't a big issue, but the fact that I lived in Germany rather than my country of citizenship of Britain, that made it like slightly different. So I didn't and I don't speak fluent German, and if anybody has lived in Germany or been to Germany, anything official is only in German. You do not get anything in English. So I had to go through all of the US visa stuff on the US websites, find out all of the US embassies in Germany, travel. It was literally, so there's one embassy that's like 5 minutes away from where I used to live, but no, that wasn't the one I needed to go to. I had to go to the one that was almost a full hour away. I applied for everything, confirmed with the university that I'm British, not German, I just live in Germany. That was like a weird thing. I did all my visa paperwork in Germany, did it all, had to send my passport off, which one of my friends back in the UK was getting married in like the July or the June, I think, and I had to send my passport off, and they had it for like, it said they could have had it for up to like 3 months, and I was like, I really want to go see my friend get married, so I couldn't book my ticket until I had my passport back, and I got it back like, they sent it back so quickly, it was like a week later. So I didn't have to worry, and I got to go see my friend get married, and it was an amazing wedding. So yeah, it kind of snowballed really quickly after that. It was very quick for me. So I went to the American embassy in Berlin, had my interview. I was so nervous. One thing that was a minor problem for me was I used an old picture for, you have to like submit a passport sized photo, and I just used the photo from my passport, which was only like 1 year old, because I got a new passport right before I went to Berlin. It was only 1 year old, and I'm too honest for my own good, so when I went to the meeting and they said, is this passport it has to be within 6 months, and they were like, is this passport within 6 months of age? I was like, oh, it's like a year old. I can't lie, I'm just a very honest person. So as soon as I said that, they were like, oh, you need a new photo, like go and get a new photo. So I went and I got a new photo taken and printed, and then they ended up printing it with my old photo anyway. Like they didn't even put the new photo in. So I wasted money, got a new photo, and I didn't even use it. But I have copies of that photo. I don't know if I need it again, but you never know. That all happened. I think I got accepted in like the May kind of time, and then I moved to the US in August and started my course in August. It's a 2-year master's program in America, and I personally am not taking a thesis. Many master's programs, especially in the UK, are only 1 year, and I think, or 1.5 years, but half of the year is focused just on the thesis, whereas here it's 2 years regardless of if you take a thesis or not, and you just take a certain amount of credit hours and just a big scary exam at the end, which mine is in 2 months' time, so that's fun. I graduate in May, and it's currently the end of February, which is very scary. And as an international student in the US, you're not permitted to work outside of the campus, but because I hold a GA position, I can't even work within the campus because my GA position takes up all of my legal hour requirements for my visa. So you're permitted to work up to 20 hours on campus legally. I say legally, and I follow the rules. I'm too afraid not to follow the rules. So my GA position is up to 20 hours, so I can't take on any more work. So in the 2 years I've been here, I haven't worked, which I'm 28 next week, and it's such an odd feeling to be 28 and having not worked for the last 2 years. I'm obviously very lucky, and I do obviously appreciate that I have a GA position and I have the tuition covered, they pay me a little bit, and my boyfriend, you know, he's great. I am very lucky, There are many people who bankrupt themselves by taking out loans in their home country or taking out loans in America if they can get them. Even domestic students, some of my friends have practically bankrupted themselves just to study. I think I can say that truthfully, that I would not have come if I had to pay for it. And that's not to say I'm taking advantage, it's just to say I wouldn't have been able to afford it. So, once you graduate as an international student from any country, international student in America from any country, if you graduate, you are entitled to take a 1-year extension where you can work anywhere in America. So anywhere in the 50 states. I could go to Hawaii, Alaska, like New York. I could stay in Tennessee. This is called an OPT. There is also I think it's called a CPT, which you can do that while you are still studying. So like through the summer or something, or over the Christmas break or something. However, if you take a CPT, it takes away, however long you do the CPT for, it takes that chunk of time away from your OPT. So if you did a 3-month CPT over the summer holiday, then that means you can only have a 9-month OPT once you graduate. If you don't take a CPT, then you can have 1 full year. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing a 1-year OPT. And it's a bit confusing. You can kind of like pick your start date, but it has to be within a certain time of graduating. And then like once the start date happens, you have 1 year of visa, and it's kind of up to you to find the job. The good thing about it is it's not a job sponsored visa, so there's no pressure on the job to pay for your visa. Sadly, I pay for it myself. It's currently like just over $400, but it's potentially going up to over $550, which is insane. There's actually like, I think, protesting going on within, I think California maybe, about keeping the price down. So they announced that it would go up to $500 like a good few months ago, maybe like 6 months ago. But luckily it's still at the lower price. So I'm actually having my meeting in 2 days time. So probably by the time this is online, I would have had my meeting already. And then hopefully I can pay the lower cost. So yeah, I'm doing my documents. There's a lot of stuff to do. So as an international student, you have your student visa is called an F1 student visa, or F1 visa. You obviously get paperwork that says all of that. You have to have this paperwork signed at certain times. Like if you leave the country, you have to take that piece of paper with you and have a certain signature on it, or else you cannot come back in on the visa. Very important piece of paper. So I have to fill out some forms for my university, and I have to go and get my F1 paperwork signed. I'm doing that on Tuesday. Then I have to fill out so much paperwork for the actual government, so that's like USCIS, I think, and that includes an I-94 paper, an I-765. It's a lot of stuff. So I'm basically just doing that right now because I've done most of it, but there are a few different things, like I haven't chosen the date that I want the visa to start. I don't even have a job lined up yet, so if you're hiring, then let me know. That's a joke, but also not a joke. So I'm just gonna like go through some of the documents that I need. I hope this helps with anyone who's also going through the process. If you have any advice for me, or you want to ask any questions, I'm more than happy always to answer questions or just discuss the process. I don't have any other international student friends here, so I don't really have anyone to talk to about it. My boyfriend came here as an international student, but that was a good few years ago now. Okay, we have the F1 piece of paper. This one has to be signed by your university, and they give you new copies of this. Has to be signed once a year, so each signature lasts for 1 year. It means that you can travel in and out of the US within that period. If the signature is out of date or you travel without the document, you cannot come back on the visa. You must bring that visa with you in your hand luggage in order to come into the country on that visa. And I'll still hold that document when I have an OPT visa. So even if I move away from this university town, I still have that document. So secondly, and this one is specific for my university, but I do assume that every American university has one. This is the request form. So I've got these tabs here because I still need to put some things on there. So the request form is basically you send that to your university, and that is to say you're requesting the OPT from the university. That just has basic information about your status as a student, so the subjects you took, your student credentials, and then so with the OPT visa you can only get a job that relates to the degree you took for this visa. So for example, I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design from the UK and my master's now is in English. I cannot take an OPT job in graphic design even though I'm qualified. It has to relate somehow to English. So it has on the request form, you have a little blurb that you have to write the types of jobs you're looking for, or if you already have one. So some people may have already had an offer when they're applying for this visa. I haven't, sadly. So you can write, it says, please indicate what types of positions you are looking for and describe how it or they relate to your major. So I haven't done that yet because I'm still deciding, but I have to do it soon because my meeting is in 2 days. So that's the request form for your university. This one, which is just one sheet, this one is basically just a Privacy Act statement that you have to sign. This one goes to the government, just to say that I don't really know what it's for, something to do with your petition, but important nonetheless. And then finally, this big, there's only about 7 pages, but 7 pages, and this is like the official application that goes to the United States government. So this has your reason for applying. So this is an application for employment authorization. This is not strictly for OPT. So this could be for people with green cards, people who changed their residence status, people who, for whatever reason, did not have authorization to work but now are trying to get that. So this form has many different purposes, and it's got codes for the type of reason you're doing it for. It basically just has all of your information, so if it's got your social security, your address, how long you've been in the States for, your reason for being in the States, all of that kind of good stuff. But that's all the stuff I have completed, and now I'm just about to do just like the final checks of things, making sure I've signed everything, making sure I've completed everything completely. I believe you have to submit some more photos of yourself. So my meeting on Tuesday is just to get my sheet signed, and I think she's going to check over my documents. And then once you have that signature, you have 30 days to send your application to the United States government, or the USCIS. And you can do that anywhere between 90 days before your program finishes up until 60 days after your program finishes. But it can take up to 3 months for them to sort out your authorization card. So that's why I'm doing it now. I think it only just opened up last week that we could apply, and I kind of was putting it off. So I'm doing it now, trying to get some less stress off my back because I have a big exam coming up. This whole visa thing is stressful, just constantly on the brain, you know? And I've never done something like this before. Even my visa as a student coming over here was not that stressful. You know, if it didn't work out, I would have just stayed in Germany. I enjoyed it in Germany. We would have worked it out. But this is more like I have a whole life here in America. Like, I live with my boyfriend, we have dogs, like, he owns this house, like, I have friends here. I really don't want to live back in the UK. I mean, preferably I'd live back in Germany, like if I had a choice, but you know, Brexit. So right now living in America is kind of the dream at the moment. It's what I want to do, it's how I see myself as being successful at this point in time. Yeah, thanks for, I guess, coming with me on my explanation on my visa stuff. I'm gonna finish up with the rest of the stuff I have to do now and just check off a few things. I think it's just things like putting dates down, checking I have photographs ready, finding an envelope, very important to have, making sure the address is right. So depending on where you live in America, you have a different address to send your documents to, and it just changed. So the old address for Tennessee area was sending it to either Texas or Chicago, and now it's the other one. So yeah, I'm gonna check the address for that because I don't want to be sending it to the wrong place. I need to check my I-94 number, which is a number that you get given, I think it's in your biometrics. So whenever you come into America on your visa, it attaches to your visa. And it basically just kind of tracks you, I guess. It shows the government if you've left or come back from the country, that kind of thing, I think. I'm not an expert in visa stuff, I just follow what it says and try to understand it where I can. But I'm gonna finish this, but I feel like this is probably a long enough video and it's very boring in like this frame, just at this angle. For now, I'm gonna say goodbye. Thanks.